everyone. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, everyone, depending on where you are. I'm very pleased to welcome all our participants to our working group session today. So we're a working group for Bosnia-Herzegovina, and we're honored to have with us Mr. Marko Milosavljević, who is the head of research and advocacy at the Youth Initiative for Human Rights Serbia, also known as YIHR Serbia. Marko has been at the forefront of educating young people on addressing the wartime past in the Western Balkans through memory activism and extensive research. His work importantly includes examining the responsibility of war crime and actively opposing the glorification of criminals. A significant aspect of Marko's advocacy involves fighting against the impunity for human rights violations of marginalized groups, including prisoners, detained persons, and national minorities such as Albanians, Bosniaks, and Croats. His editorial work includes notable publications like Kosovo Chronology, 1974-2017, and War in Serbia, 91-2001. It did happen. What else about Marko? In 2023, Marko coordinated a crucial project on the misuse of address passivation of Albanians in Serbia, contributing profoundly to our understanding of discriminatory practices in the region. Furthermore, Marko has been involved in drafting significant communications to international bodies, including a recent letter to the President of the United Nations General Assembly regarding the resolution on the Srebrenica genocide. So today, Marko will share insights from his extensive research and advocacy efforts, providing us with a deeper understanding of the ongoing challenges and also the crucial work being done in the field of human rights in the Balkans. So please join me in warmly welcoming Marko Milosavljević to our talk today.
Welcome, Marko.
Thank you, Vildana. Thank you, Patrick, and thank you all of you that at Sunday you use your time actually to meet with me. Not, I mean, also personally, but as a representative of, as Vildana said, the Youth Initiative for Human Rights in Serbia, but also as a youth initiative as a regional network. So the plan is that I will try to in 15-20 minutes to explain foundation of youth initiatives, some of our challenges and achievement in the context of Serbia, and of course in the context of the region of Western Balkans. First, few words about me. I mean, I started to work at Youth Initiative for Human Rights in 2015. So I'm like a war veteran right now at youth-led organization in Serbia. But as Vildana presented me, focused on my work is on the war crimes during the Yugoslav wars. Also, the human rights violations during the wars and in a post-Milosavljević era in Serbia, but also in the region. So from my work at Youth Initiative, I was working on human rights department, as now we was called that, and now I'm the head of research and advocacy, and a lot of initiatives that we are doing. I'm trying to coordinate and to put them on political agenda, which is very, as you probably aware, especially because Serbia is actually explained as a hybrid regime in last decade. So Youth Initiative for Human Rights was established in 2003. So just a few months in November that year, just a few months after the assassination of Prime Minister of Zoran Đinđić, and the idea of 11 founders of that youth-led organization, maybe you know, for the name of founders, Andrei Nosov, who was in that time had 22 years. And now it's the same. I mean, the average year of the people in our staff at Youth Initiative for Human Rights in Serbia is around 24, 25 years. But at the beginning in 2003, that was a regional youth organization with first office at Belgrade, and then other offices during the years until 2009-8 was founded too. And now we have 5 offices, so in 5 capitals of in Belgrade, in Podgorica, in Sarajevo, Zagreb, and in Pristina. And what is also typical or characteristical for youth initiative is the values. So we are trying to explain to our societies, not only in Serbia but also in the region, that without dealing with the past and without the truth and about the wars and the war crimes, democracy cannot be actually established and as a system as a political system that we want to live in. And there is no European or any other Atlantic integration if these tasks, if we can describe them as a task, are not actually done. That means that from 2003 until today, so 2 decades, we established educational program for young people, like a youth exchange program, firstly oriented to people from Serbia, Kosovo, and Bosnia and Herzegovina to travel to the another country to spend from 1 week to 1 month, actually to know more about the political and social context of these societies, and also to learn about the atrocities, but based on the court judgments or based on the from various organizations and institutions who was actually monitoring and reporting about human rights violations, among them, of course, the war crimes. And from that program, back then in 2004, 2005, actually we tried to have specific groups of people who, for the first time, visit, for example, from Belgrade, Pristina, or spend some time in Kosovo. Then in the period of 2004-2007, we established a group of 20-30 journalists who very young, who was reporting from Kosovo, but there was the journalist from Belgrade-based medias, and that was a bit something that was during the 90s not so possible, for example. But what we one of our pillars of the work is, as I said, dealing with the past, and especially fight against impunity, but also in the last decade, impunity for war crimes. But in the last decade, we was profound as one of the organization or group of young people who are actually confronting to the process of glorification of war criminals, which is very, very, for us, very visible. So the government in Serbia, but also other governments in the region, but particularly in Serbia, are actually proclaiming as the national heroes some of these people who are convicted for the war crimes. I will just explain you through a last example. So probably you are aware that yesterday was some kind of Serbian assembly of the government of Serbia and Republika Srpska, and representatives of Serb political parties from the also Montenegro, North Macedonia, but without Serb representatives from Croatia. And that was one of these performances, and basically the through these events, are also promoted war criminals. For example, yesterday there was one event that both President Vučić and President Dodik actually spent some time with the war veterans from Republika Srpska and Serbia, who was participated in the wars in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in Kosovo. And among them, there was Vladimir Lazarević. He is maybe one of the top war criminals who are now proclaimed as a national hero, not only by the president of Serbia, but also from the various institutions. And for example, Ministry of Defense of Serbia in 2018 actually called a few of these war criminals to write a book, and Ministry of Defense actually published these books. And then we was protesting back then in 2018 because these books was promoted at the fair of the books, one of the biggest in the country in Belgrade. And there was basically not in that time, but before that, there was a process of normalization of that practice. So like these persons are not convicted, that these verdicts are actually was done by political court, how the government perceived the tribunal in The Hague, so ICTY. And we are trying to the different occasions to remind the society about and about these things, and to translate the facts from the court to the people, especially to the young people. Just another example is also some commemoration that we did, speaking of the war crimes. So basically from 2005, we are gathering young people from Serbia to travel to Tuzla to commemorate Tuzlanska kapija crime, especially from 2010. Because as you probably know, Novak Djukic, who was convicted for this crime, actually fled to Serbia in the meantime between two verdicts. Maybe if someone have questions about that, I can explain why two verdicts. But every year we have a group of 20 people from Serbia who are going there. And before that, they got information, lectures, and discussion about, for example, that crime specifically, because average year of the people that was killed by the grenade of Army of Republika Srpska on 25th May of 1995 was at 22, 23, the same average year that people from Youth Initiative have. And this is not only commemoration that we are doing still today. So we are trying, because in Serbian context we have basically approach to these commemoration that are ethnically selected, only Serbian victims, but in very, I will say, wrong manner are actually used for new hatred, so to say, and because of that, the place of remembrance is by the government position is there is no space and no space for recognition of Albanian, Croat, or Muslim victims from the war in wars in ex-Yugoslavia, but also some other ethnicities and some other groups who was still missing or abducted in war crimes in not only on the territory of ex-Yugoslav countries, but also in Serbia. Another example how we are trying to educate people, and not only youngsters, is that we are trying to make some educational platforms. One of these, I think that Vildana mentioned, is the War in Serbia. We did that in 2020. Why? Because we decided to, at one place and during the pandemic, actually to have the project that actually collect all informations from the courts and from the other NGOs about the atrocities at the territory of Serbia, which actually showing to the people the different side of the story, because as you know, Milosevic narrative is still alive in the sense that officially Serbia was not part of the wars in ex-Yugoslavia. And with that platform, War in Serbia, we was trying to actually to present this knowledge about the paramilitary units, about the detention centers, about the torture and killings, and how people was actually missing, especially in Vojvodina and in Sanjak area, where Muslims and Croats was especially targeted. But of course, we was special focus was also on war in Kosovo and on secret operation of the how military and police actually cover these crimes through the building or actually making some mass graves at the facilities of military and police in a different locations in Serbia. Also, I mean, when I'm speaking about this fight about the glorification of war criminals, we have a lot of challenges when we are speaking about this. I mean, we are not only fighting against them in the public, in sense of the press releases, etc. We are trying to be at the streets. For the few times we have different problems, so to say. For example, in 2016, we was actually protesting in front of the Momčilo Krajišnik and the promotion of his book in the center of Belgrade. And then two of our activists was actually threatened. But then for us, I mean, the region much more know for Youth Initiative in 2017, when on some during the electoral campaign in January 2017, we was whistling to the Veselin Šljivančanin because Serbian Progressive Party actually make a promotion of one of his books in front of the mainly refugees from Croatia, Serbian nationality, and this is the way how these nationalistic narratives still alive. So using these war criminals as a promoters of the parties in power, and after that whistling, we was beaten up, two of us actually, and after that there was a long 2 or 3 months there was a tabloid campaign against the organization and against us, and because of that we was sanctioned as a misdemeanor act by the Serbian laws. But then we figured it out that we need to have some kind of campaign of the that people actually donated the money for our fines, and then we actually paid. Secondly, when I'm speaking about the commemorations, of course, that we are known as one of these because there was also Humanitarian Law Center as a leading the NGO when we're speaking about war crimes in Serbia, but also Women in Black. But and we are these younger generation who are actually from 2004, 2005, trying to actually make some kind of way for the recognition of the victims of genocide in Srebrenica on a different ways. For example, in 2005, Youth Initiative installed more than 20 billboards across the Serbia with the photos of Tamir Samara, the famous photographer from Bosnia. He was making the photos of, in that time, Srebrenica as a city, but also photos of the evidence from the ICTY, especially in the case of Radoslav Krstić. And that was one of the biggest campaign that we did in 2005, with, of course, with a lot of problems, but that make attention to the people, and that here was also important because, as you know, the video shooting of scorpions actually was on TV too, from ICTY to B92 and RTS in that time. And after that, there was a public polls who was showing to us that there was a momentum for catharsis in Serbian society, because more than a half of the people in Serbia was figuring out that that war crimes was did by the units of Serbia or under the control of Milosavljević regime. But 15 or more than 15 years after, the situation is worse and worse, especially because with that nationalistic narrative, Serbian Progressive Party, not at the beginning, but after 2015, back in the game and in the power. And that's why we are explaining these campaign against this resolution recently. And but I will just present you some case about these murals that you probably know. The murals of Ratko Mladić 3 years ago, from July 2021. So in that time, after the verdict, final verdict from residual mechanism in The Hague in 2021, as a reaction for this final verdict, some hooligan groups, firstly in Republika Srpska and then in Serbia, actually portrayed Ratko Mladić image all across some towns in Republika Srpska, but then in Belgrade and across the Serbia too. Then we, as a youth-led organization, decided to actually to have some kind of different approach to remove these images from the scars of our towns and the cities. The first one is the biggest one mural that was in Belgrade, in Njegoševa Street. And then we figured out that we want to actually to hire one private company actually to remove it on the 9th November as a day against the fascism and anti-Semitism. But then our event was banned by Serbian police with explanation that of Minister Vulin, who said that he don't want to let that Serbian heads will be, you know, bloody heads will be at the streets of the Belgrade. But then we decided to have some kind of resistance to this decision. We was organizing a few protests about this case. Few months after, basically the whole Belgrade was in the murals of graffiti of Ratko Mladić as a Serbian hero. We were suing the state because of that decision to ban our assembly, and we are still at the Constitutional Court on this case. But then we decide to collect all the places that people can send to us locations and images, and then after that, in 2022, we sent around 300 or more applications that companies, the public companies of the city of Belgrade, but also 10 towns in Serbia need to remove, because this is their obligation by the laws in Serbia to remove these images of Ratko Mladić. So this is just example of our work. Also, what I didn't mention is our special focus on reconciliation with Kosovo. We still have the youth exchange program. Each year we have more than 50 persons who for the first time spend time in Kosovo and also in Serbia. We are monitoring also human rights violations against the Albanians in Serbia, and I will talk later about it. But maybe one of these the things that we actually we are trying to still to have cooperation at the first place when we're speaking about the relation between Serbia and Kosovo. This is the cultural festival Mirita Dobar Dan that we are organizing for 10 years now, and just in a few weeks it will be a new edition of this festival in Belgrade. Of course, with a lot of problems, with a lot of challenges, but this is the platform that in case when this festival is organized in Belgrade, that Kosovo cultural scene can present themselves in Belgrade for a broader public, but also some alternative musicians or theater plays or painting exhibitions can be presented also in Pristina. And this is the way how we are trying to, you know, to tackle these miscommunication or blocking connections between the institutions of Serbia and Kosovo, especially in the years that Serbia are not officially still not recognize Kosovo. This is briefly with some examples. Sorry to maybe take more time that I was thinking, but this is for first 20-25 minutes, and now you can ask me whatever you want about our work and also have your comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marko, so much. I'm so impressed with your work, and yeah, I'm so happy to that you find time to meet with us, even you don't know much about our group, so I really appreciate it, even especially on the Sunday. So now I would like to open questions to our participants here. We have a question from Kenan. Kenan, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Thank you, Marko, for coming to today and presenting to us your great initiative and work of your group. I commend your work, but more than anything else, I commend your bravery, because it's not easy to put up with the Serbian regime and try to demonstrate to them the truth, as painful as it is for Serbia from the past and present. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. I would like to ask you, you know, and what I want to say, I love Serbia. I spent a lot of time in Serbia. I did my military service as a physician in late 80s in Serbia. I love Belgrade. I lived in Belgrade for 5 months. It's a very beautiful city. I have a lot of friends and even some relatives. I'll go to the bottom of the problem and to the most important question of the day. As you know, yesterday they had a Sabor of Serbia and the Republika Srpska in Belgrade, which in essence is call for arms. And we in Bosnia and Herzegovina, from the highest levels of government to the lowest levels of people, are very worried, and of course starting to prepare for what looks like to be an inevitable aggression once again to Bosnia and Herzegovina. My question to you is, what is your personal take on this Sabor? How soon can we expect aggression of Serbia and Republika Srpska to Bosnia and Herzegovina? And if you can illustrate from your perspective this Just for a full disclosure, I have been during the war in Bosnia. I have been before the war in Bosnia. This is exactly the same as it started at that time. We should not put our head into the sand. Yeah. So these are my questions. Thank you very much again. And please, I would like to know your thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your kind words and for one of the crucial questions. I mean, especially in last week. Speaking about these, as I said, Serbian Assembly or Sabor, how they call it, Sve Srpski, meaning that all Serbs are presented there. But I will say some arguments who are going against these premises that or these theses that is the going for a new aggression. But firstly, yes, I am absolutely aware, and my impression following the and confronting the these campaign of denial against the resolution at the UN General Assembly on genocide in Srebrenica. I mean, these assembly that was organized by Serbia, officially Serbian Republika Srpska, is the response on this initiative. That's the first thing. But this thing that I want to present as something that is not in the line that it will come with this new aggression is that Milorad Dodik just a day before the Sabor said that, and then again repeated in this central meeting of two governments, said that they will actually choose 15 November for the day of Republika Srpska. So they are changing from the 9th January to 15 February, the same day as a day of statehood of Serbia, which is also problematic. But this is the move that I say that from the US and move under the pressure of the US and the EU. And because of that, they need to have this type of circus, which is pointless. I mean, in the essence, this declaration who is saying the same as they are saying for the long period of time, but now they are put it in the one document with some, of course, very nationalistic manner, with chauvinistic messages, but combined with the declarative messages for calling for a peace, etc., etc. But for me, this Sabor is just not so to say as per se, not so problematic as this idea of division between the nations in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That is idea that actually now Dodik and the government in Republika Srpska now proclaimed as official policy. And this policy was the same, as you said. I mean, this is the policy of Radovan Karadžić and his associates back then from the January of 1992, proclaimed in these 6 strategic goals of Serbian people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which are these actually used as a confirmation for a genocidal intent on the end in the cases for a bunch of these war criminals at the ICTY. So yes, I see the opportunity that government of Serbia, not so directly because they cannot afford that, but of course government of Republika Srpska very directly. They are saying that they want to go out from the and to divide the people and the only instrument for this is the violence and the war, from my point of view. The problem is right now is that both of these governments are waiting the elections in US and also waiting for the elections in of European Parliament, so the forming of new commission, and they are waiting for their momentum, and maybe in these new circumstances they can actually activate some of these war plans. And I think that they have, I mean, as they have for Kosovo, they also have a partition between the Serbia and Kosovo as options on the table. So they have a different options to which led also to aggression. So this is my thoughts about this. But I on the end for this question, on the end, what I think is that we are lacking in Serbia is visible and loud opposition who will actually confront to this policy. And what Vučić successfully did, he actually diminished any kind of policy on the crucial questions in Serbian society and also in the region. And then few of these democratic oppositional parties are feeling very hard to explain the policy towards the Kosovo, policy towards the regional cooperation or recognition of the victims of the other nations in the ex-Yugoslavia countries. But I see the progress in some of these steps, and we are also speaking about the advocacy. We are working also on this. So last year, Dobrica Veselinović, so one of the front runners of Green Left movement, Green Left Front from the Belgrade. He visited for the first time Srebrenica Memorial Center. So we have the in a coordination with us and the people from Srebrenica Memorial Center. He was there on the 10th July of the last year, and of course this party and, for example, party of Free Citizens, very liberal. They are small, but they are, I think, ready to take these positions, but very visibly and very constantly in next period. But we are lacking. We are in a minus when we are speaking about the time, and these forces that we are now talking about, like Dodik and Vučić, I mean, they are moving these steps, and this is why we need to have these democratic opposition in power soon. But also they need to show their political will to do some other things. And this is why local elections recently in June, but also in December, was very crucial for the opposition to have some of these municipalities in Serbia and to demonstrate a different policy than this regime under the Serbian Progressive Party.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I get it, and I understand. I mean, you and the opposition you're fighting for your country, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I can see that you want the future for Serbia to not to be questionable, and because whenever you go to war or confrontation, which we can see now in many different places in the world, going on right now, when you go into war, no matter how powerful you are, the end is not clear, and you may end up even being a very powerful country losing that war and disintegrating that country. So I understand where you're coming from. And my last question before I leave to other panelists is, what is the real ratio of Serbian population, Serbian intelligence, Serbian intellectuals, the ones behind the Vučić and Serbian Academy of Arts and Sciences and Serbian Orthodox Church, which are clearly on one side extremely radical, extremely right, and the other side, as I said, beautiful face of Serbia. What is, I mean, we from outside, it's difficult to understand. I know elections are not a real mirror of forces within Serbia, because, you know, there are a lot of manipulations and voting things and the division of the opposition. But what's your best guesstimate is the ratio of behind Vučić, ultra-right, and this, let's say, free thought, spirited Serbia?
Thank you again for another question. I think that, I mean, there is a different group of intellectuals who are politically active. Last 2 or 3 years, we are seeing that some of these intellectuals, so for example, some of the judges or lawyers are loud about the corruption and about the basically the ties with the criminal gangs and the ruling political parties, etc., and about, of course, democratic deficit in Serbia. But there is a less and less intellectuals who are speaking about these things that we are now speaking about. So about the connections between the war crimes and today image of Serbia. And speaking about that, so there is a I will say ultra-nationalistic intellectual circles who was of course under the Milosavljević, but then from 2000 until 2012, 13, they was, you know, under the radar. They was silent, or they was in some kind of retirement. Of course, not prosecuted for their role during the wars, but now they are very not only visible, but some of them have public official positions in the government. Some of them, for example, like maybe you know, Uroš Šuvaković, he was one of these people from Yule, party of Mira Marković. He is now university professor and also one of the people who are deciding about deans on few social sciences faculties at Belgrade University. He was, for example, responsible for a beating of protesters in the 2000s, who was protesting against the Milosavljević rule. He is now presenting the officially government of Serbia. Then you have Dragoslav Bokan, the leader of paramilitary unit Beli Orlovi, who is every day on TV, and he is that I will say typical ultra conservative type of intellectuals, because he's one of the movie directors, and he is now making these one of the commemoration dedicated to the Serbian victims that was organized by Serbian government. So you have these type of circles that he's around the governing party. And I will say my impression is that majority of intellectuals are actually silent, and some of them are with the regime because of, you know, opportunistic reasons, or they are Ketmans in sense that privately they will, you know, talk about very honestly about what's happening in the country or in the world, but then officially in the institutions or at some or in the public, they will be, you know, relative wise some of these processes in Serbia, etc. And plus, I will say something else that we are witnessing. This is these um, scene of civil society in Serbia, who is now very marginalized, but also some representatives of civil society from the 90s or from 2000s are basically, part of the regime. You have some NGOs who was monitoring the elections very objectively in 2000s, but now they are presenting the information on very biased manner, of course, in advance for Vučić and etc. But for me, I will say that you also need to know one fact that just in the last 5 years, in Serbia, you have more than 100 televisions. Majority of them are not, they don't have a national frequencies, but all these 6 that they have a national frequency, and you can watch it everywhere in Serbia, but also in the region, is basically controlled by the regime. But you also have a majority of these 100 who are actually made in the last couple of years. And these, the foundation of these televisions is from the laundering of the money through the public institutions like Telecom, who is now the leading telecommunication company, of course, by the government of Serbia, and who have a lot of businesses not only in Serbia, but also in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They have a twin sister companies in the Republic of Srpska and also in Kosovo, etc., etc. I'm speaking about this because the image of reality, of political reality, is created by these televisions, and on these televisions, these ultra-nationalistic representatives of intellectual elite have a dominant percentage of presentation, or showing them as analysts who will elaborate on these things. Just on example like this Sabor, yesterday, because I'm constantly watching these propaganda material, you have 20-30 people who are actually from the morning, so from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. Elaborating the same thesis, and just to know who is there. One of these people are, for example, Tomo Kovač. Tomo Kovač is the ex-minister of Interior at the Republika Srpska during the Radovan Karadžić rule. In 2014, he was have indictment for participating in a genocide in Srebrenica. He actually ordered these few units of police from Jahorina mountain to came to Srebrenica, and Tomo Kovač is now one of the leading businessmen in Novi Sad, have a lot of companies, and time to time he is elaborating what's happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And of course, the part of this presentation of him on television is the denial of the war crimes. Just 7 days ago, he was at the Sunday TV show at the TV Pink, and he was, giving some false information about Markale crime and about Vasa Miskina crime in 1992 during the siege of Sarajevo. So this is just examples how the regime want to portray the situation particularly about Bosnia and Herzegovina, and about intellectuals. They're using these ultra-nationalistic, and also some of them not so nationalistic, but for their nationalistic goals. And that's, for example, we have institutions called Museum of Victims of Genocide, that was founded in 1992 under the Milošević rule. But of course, these institutions are not researching or examining or anyhow trying to touch, for example, the crimes in Bosnia and Herzegovina during the war in 1992 until 1995. The only victims for them are the Serbs, and this is ethnocentric, perspective, and of course perpetuating the victimhood approach, plus with the slightly or not slightly but directly the glorification of Serbian war criminals.
I'm going to go ahead and ask my question, Marko. I wanted, like Kenan, I would also like to commend you for your tremendous courage. And they always say courage is the virtue that enables all others. And certainly the great work that you're doing, I think, is based on that foundation. My question, you mentioned that the release of the video of the Scorpions was a moment of catharsis for Serbia and that didn't last. And my question is a little bit related to what Kenan asked, but a little more broadly. Why do you think it is so hard in Serbian society and in Serbian political life for there to be an acknowledgement of the crimes of the past?
Thank you so much for your kind words and for your question. I mean, this is the question under the questions of all of these things, but I see the explanation can be in these portraying the image of who is the victim and who is oppressor, and because the preparation for Yugoslav wars in context of Serbian nationalism, as you know, was made through these ceremonies or these examination of the graves of Serbs from the concentration camps, especially some mass graves in Croatia, but also in Bosnia, etc., etc. So the genocide was actually, as a phenomena, was a central term during the 80s, and because of these approach that I already said, it's centered that Serbian people as a collective, as a nation, is the only one or main victim in the region of Western Balkans, especially after the historical genocide that happened, but not only against the Serbs, but also against the Jews and against the Roma in these so-called independent state of Croatia. These trauma that was used or misused for a new nationalistic power from Milošević regime, actually, because this is still strong, because, as I explained, these propaganda is fueling every day. This is one thing, and because I will say the average citizen cannot put in the same frame that, I mean, some people can also be a victim and also be a perpetrator, and it's hard now to explain that. And that it's possible that, for example, to have a recognition of the victims from the different side, but also to trying to prosecute the crimes under your people, so to say. But this point was never done in Serbian context, because these mythological and also way of thinking, plus with you know, the other reason is that people from the institutions who was participating in this crime and in this preparation of the wars, this is the, I think, the thousands of people who are still live in Serbia and have a power because of that. And of course that they don't want to, you know, to break this pyramid and to, you know, to allow easily someone to break these ice. I mean, they are of course making some compromise, and the compromise was also the arrest and the prosecution of these scorpions. This is maybe one of the best examples. Why? Because probably you are aware about this case. For 7 of them was arrested few days after that video, but they was prosecuted for the war crimes. But in the indictment and on the end in the verdict, there was no connection between the Srebrenica enclave, so the place when these Muslim boys and men was actually taken, and these killings. And of course, there is no in that verdict of Belgrade Special Court for the war crimes, there is no connections or mentioning the role of institutions of Serbian state, like his secret police. But then what we got, I mean, last year, and this is also how we are trying to, as I said, translate these facts to the society. Last year, in these final verdict to Stanisic and Simatovic, we have this connection. I mean, among of these war crimes that they are responsible for, this is the killing of these 6 men and boys from Srebrenica, and Stanisic and Simatovic are now responsible for these killings because they armed, they supported this unit, and we know now officially. We knew that before, of course, from this court evidence. I mean, this is why I think that to break these prejudice about collective victim and collective perpetrator, to have this generalistic, you know, point of view towards speaking Serbs or Muslims, etc., etc., and not to point to the specific individuals with the power and specific institutions that individuals can misuse to make a violence. This is the way how we can, you know, going out from these ethno-nationalistic circles, and that's why I think that, you know, dealing with the past in Serbia is crucial, because without that, I think that reconciliation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example, or in Croatia, as a process will be have a lot of missing elements if this is not done in the context of Serbia or from people of Serbia. This is very difficult to achieve in a next couple of decades. But what we also, and I personally perceive, and this is the very few people who are now ready to, you know, collaborate on these issues on institutional or from organizational level, from Bosnia and Herzegovina with people from Serbia, and I see that as a result of these last decade of fueling the new hatred, and because of that now we have these ethnocentric commemorative cultures. So that means that in case of when people will see Serbia is only commemorating Serbian victims, then in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina they will commemorate So Bosniaks and Croats, and then in Republic Srpska they will say there is no prosecution for Serbian victims, which is not true, of course. But these breaking these prejudices about who is that it's possible that people who was also part of the was a victim in for example in World War II can be, of course, some members of these people can be also perpetrators, and this is, I think, crucial to explain, but very in very simple way. And this is why we need, as Kenan said, I mean, intellectuals who will explain these things. And nowadays, if you ask me, there is one very conservative historian who was back then in the 90s, was a part of democratic opposition, but very unclear about the atrocities during the war, but now very clear about them. This is for example, Milan Protic, who is now explaining why it's crucial for Serbia to recognize Kosovo, or why we need to actually we need a truth as a Serbian society about what happened not only in Srebrenica but in the whole Bosnia and Herzegovina during this period of war.
Thank you so much. We're a few minutes past time, but if we can ask for you to stay just a little bit longer. Phil, will go to you, and then David, you had your hand up, but we'll see how we do on time maybe, but or could we combine?
No problem with me. No
Oh,
problem
okay,
with
good.
me.
All right, so we'll go to Phil and then David, and then we'll wrap up at that point. So Phil, please go ahead when you're ready.
First, I'd like to congratulate you on being part of a courageous group of young people. In 2003, after the group started, they contacted the prosecutor's office at the Yugoslav Tribunal in The Hague, and we established a relationship, and we started to work together. So whenever your group needed information, they obtained it. They came and visited the Hague, and it was very, very impressive young group. Just had one question. Today, you mentioned Tuzla and the Jukic case. And last I had heard, and this is a number of years ago, Jukic, after they had the sentencing issue, although the conviction's been affirmed, the sentencing issue, he claimed that he was very ill, could only get treatment in Serbia, left for Serbia, and that's the last I had ever heard. He's, I believe, wanted. There's warrants for his arrest in Bosnia. And what's the latest status with Jukic?
Thank you so much, Philip, for this information about or impression about Youth Initiative back then. Just to add that, that Youth Initiative actually made an internship program at the ICTY for a few years, and a lot of people that when I came to the Youth Initiative, some of them was actually trained at the ICTY and spent some time at the prosecutor office or some other departments of the court. And thank you for this question about Tuzla case. The last status is that from 2016, appeal court in Serbia take a jurisdiction actually to confirm the verdict of court of Bosnia and Herzegovina in his case. So just to confirm the same sentence. And as you know, I mean, you only need a few hearings for this kind of confirmation. But what's happening from 2016 until today, there is a couple of planned hearings, but he is missing these, or actually fleeing from these hearings with the, as you said, explanation that he is very ill and he cannot be, he's not, you know, jurisdically responsible, so he cannot participate at the court, etc. So this is a very sophisticated way how Serbian court system, but also some other different institution actually saving Novak Djukic from the prosecution. Why I'm saying this? Because the medical institution who is giving the apology for him is military medical academy under the Ministry of Defense. This is the first thing. So he have, as you know, he have a pensions from the Ministry of Defense of Serbia as a successor of the Army of Yugoslavia, because Djukic and the others like Ratko Mladic during the wartime, but also after, they got the salaries from the Belgrade. But what we also react in 2019, there was a promotion of one book about this crime. The author is another general, Ilija Branković, also ex-GNA general, who was, of course, having some false theories about that Tuzla crime was happened because some Islamistic terrorist organization put a bomb and you know, and the other crazy things. But in the first row of that promotion that was held in the headquarters of Ministry of Defense of Serbia, at the first row, Novak Djukic was sitting and listening this promotion. So he is very you know, very visible, very live, so to say, and he have a time to go there, but he cannot came to the court. And the another example that he is actually saved from the regime and from the governing party. He was interviewed a few times by Večernje Novosti. So basically, Večernje Novosti is the public daily newspaper. Was very, as you know, very active in propaganda during the period of the 90s, but also after the 90s. But from 2017, Večernje Novosti, the main editor of Večernje Novosti, is ex-director of Radio Television Serbia under the Milošević rule, Milorad Vučelić, maybe one of the top propagandists during the Milošević time. And he is, you know, giving a platform not only to Novak Djukic, but also to the other war criminals to be interviewed from the prisons, etc., etc. And in 2018, there was also one interview with him, and Novak Djukic for Večernje Novosti said that, you know, if people from Tuzla will be smart, then they will put his name on Tuzla Tapija monument. So very cynical message from the person who was convicted for that war crime. So he's in retirement in Belgrade, and just to give you info that Humanitarian Law Center that I mentioned, they have annually report about war crime cases in Belgrade, and they are actually continuously reporting about this case. So that's how we know did these hearings that I mentioned are happening or not. But this is, you know, this is the waste of time. This is the basically the way that they want just to, that victims, the families of the victims, the Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state, just, you know, to said we are giving up. We cannot wait, and this is the exhaustion, you know, of all of these interesting party in this case. So this is about Djukic so far.
Wow.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Marco. Thanks, Phil, for your good question. David, we're going to go to you for a last question and we'll finish on that note. So please go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, well, I'll just make a brief comment and a brief question. So I'll join my voice to thanking Marko for his good work. And I had a experience recently when I was giving a talk to in Swedish Parliament, and I was talking about the glorification of war criminals in Republika Srpska, and with providing, you know, concrete examples and photographs from my research. And I can't give you the whole context, but what made an impression on me was that the Croatian ambassador to Sweden was there, and he was, you know, shocked by what he was learning, and that interested me. So it shows. And then he invited me to his home the next day to discuss this because he was shocked to learn about the glorification of convicted war criminals. So what I learned from that is that it's important to keep telling the truth and raising awareness about it. You know, to think that someone in such a diplomatic position from Croatia wouldn't have been aware of these murals, for example, and plaques and so forth. And that's that's my comment. I had a couple of other experiences in that context where people were you know, kind of shocked to learn about this phenomenon. But the question I had was about the mural in Belgrade in relation to the activist Aida Čorović, who was arrested and sentenced to prison for throwing eggs at the mural. And I put the link in the chat to a 9-minute documentary by Aida Hajimusic, who actually built a documentary around a kind of dialogue between the mural in Kalinovic and the mural in Belgrade. And just as an aside, a number of the perpetrators in Kalinovic also fled to Serbia and escaped prosecution. I apologize, I don't have their names to rattle off for you, but there's but at any rate, I wondered if there was any update on Aida's case, Aida Čorovic's case in Belgrade, and whether it's possible that did she go to prison, for example? I'm not sure.
Thank you, David, for your kind words and for the questions. And I know one of the person that actually the work I know from the group, and I saw the emails, that was you, and so I'm glad that that we have a chance to speak. And I know for your work and your dedication to these issues. So I'm flattered to now to answer on your all of these questions. Related to Aida Čorović case, no, he's not in the prison. First, there was the decision by the end of the year, so in December, that appeal court for misdemeanor said that she is convicted, but then a few NGOs, among them also Youth Initiative, actually disseminate the idea that we are actually will pay for that sanction. So the prison was alternative sentence. So the first sentence was for her to pay around 1,000 euros, and then we, in a few days, led by Crocodile NGO, so another NGO, people from Belgrade and from the region very quickly actually collect the money and then pay these sanctions. So these cases closed. The same as our case was for this case when we was protesting against the Veselin-Šljivančanin, and this is basically the same article of for misdemeanor act, so against the peace and order. And this is why some journalist was, you know, saying that if you're protesting against against the war criminals in Serbia, then you are protesting against the peace and order. So then you can conclude what the peace is in Serbia today, and also update. I mean, we are in a communication with her constantly. We are trying to have some kind of broader coalition about these murals, because the update is that we didn't get any kind of response to our request for removal of all of these more than 300 graffitis and murals. Some of them are removed by the citizens. Among them is this central mural, or we call it the monument, because that was the first one, and it was basically the monument that was protected by the hooligan groups and by the police in the first months. But after that, that was quit with that practice. And that central mural in Njegoševa Street in Belgrade was removed by one of the MPs, oppositional political parties, after these two mass shootings in Belgrade and around the Smederevo, so in May last year. So that big one image that probably you saw, it's now not existing. It's now only white. But there is hundreds of these graffiti, not only in Belgrade but also across the Serbia, and we didn't have any institutional response on this. So what we are doing in the meantime, that we are have some kind of radical activistic actions that in early morning hours we are putting some signs on these murals, because then there is a percentage that nobody can see you in the meantime. But we will see how we will address that issue. Now we have some plans how to commemorate next 11 July and to transform these articles of this UN resolution in laws and in practice in Serbia. I know it's for someone it's very tough to have that ambition, but I think that we need to have, and then we need to just to consider the some kind of strategy how we will do it. And about the connection between the Kalinovic case and the case in Belgrade, yeah, there is very significant connection, and I will say not only about the image, but also about who is the creator of both of these monument and the mural in Belgrade. In case of Kalinovic, as I know, the person who actually buy a material and actually some kind of sponsor of that monument is the son of Momčilo Mandić. So also one of the very famous non-prosecuted war criminals who is now living in Montenegro. And Momčilo, his son is now very well established in the Serbian Progressive Party, and now very influential when we're speaking about electoral fraud. And he was the person who was actually with his company, because he have a bus company and etc. Actually, this company was used to transfer the people from Republika Srpska to vote in Belgrade and also the other towns in Serbia. Of course, that prosecutor office didn't prosecute all of these issues when I'm speaking about electoral fraud, but this is what we also need to have as a space for elaboration, research, and advocacy, and this is very important for today's Serbia. This is the democratic deficit, and who is now, ruling the Serbia, and how it's connected with the wars. In this case, it's very important that basically now the sons and the people from the family of people who was ordering or committing the war crimes are now taking their positions of the influence and the power. And just another example, that we now as a member of parliament have the grandson of Slobodan Milosavljević. And during the electoral campaign in the last couple of months, he was present as a grandson and as a successor of Milosavljević, so, and of course that he, for example, opened some kind of memory room on his, granddad, and etc., etc. So, but in this case, Mandić family is very, very significant. These connections about Kalinovic, and I know not only in Kalinovic case, but also about the Prijedor. A lot of these officers of Republika Srpska is still in Serbia, and what we are, as you said, why it's needed to again to speak and to elaborate on these issues. We decided from last year to have these, we call state of denial reports, and I will send you the last edition about these practices of denial. And I hope that in next month we will have ready for 2023. So I will send that too. But there was idea back in few years ago that we are researching about these people who are actually running out from the justice from Bosnia and Herzegovina to Serbia, because there is a lot of them who are on Interpol red warrant, but because of very complex and Serbian judicial system, and of course political will to save these people from the prosecution for war crimes, they are on freedom.
Thank you so much, Marko. I hope this is really just the beginning of continuing dialogue and conversation and contact with you and your group. What a pleasure it was to hear from you. And as Janita said, how did she say it? What a brilliant young man. We agree. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Vildana for your initiative in organizing the program, and thank all of you for coming today, and look forward to continuing the conversation when we can. So thanks so much, and we'll be seeing all of you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See you soon, I hope.
For sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.